The Evolution of Women Within Video Games by Emily Johnson, Caitlin Davis, and Lucy Gregory. The history of women within video games. Where did it all begin and how has it developed over time? So, here we created a timeline from when women first started appearing in video games in around the 1980s, where female characters were barely distinguishable from male characters apart from characteristics such as eyelashes. Towards the 2000s, women began to be represented in games such as Grand Theft Auto, Far Cry, and Call of Duty. The video game industry is one of the most profitable fields within the entertainment industry around the world, but it's repeatedly criticised for what appears to be the persistent sexualisation and objectification of female characters. These women are represented through their appearance, the roles they play, alongside the narrative structure within the game. If you take note of how female characters were first designed within the curation of video games compared to now, there's been a vast change in terms of their appearance, the roles they play, and how often they are actually present within the game. Here's another example that we thought was good. So this shows Peach in 1985 compared to now, her appearance has completely changed. Types of female characters within video games. We need to look into how women are portrayed within video games in order to understand if representation of women has improved over time. Types of female characters in video games was looked at by a professor of psychology, DeWall. He focused on women within video games and established that their roles can be categorized through stereotypes in three main subgroups: the homemaker, the professional, and the sex object. What caused the evolution of women within video games? Over time, game developers have had to redesign and rethink the female characteristics due to mass criticisation concerning over-sexualisation and objectification of the characters. Many critics have assertively spoken out about how strong female characters within video games are rare, and with the characters that do appear are often presented as prizes. So, why does representation matter? Video games are considered by numerous individuals as a crucial channel for children, teenagers, and adults today. Two psychologists claim that video games train for a logical way of thinking. Video games become a channel of communication and socialization between people. We apply this theory to our topic of representation. It raises the question: what detrimental impact is it having on women and girls who participate within these games? Is there a lack of female representation within video games? There was a study done which examined violence and gender stereotyping with 33 Nintendo and Sega video games. It was found that 40% of the games sampled had no female representation at all. Another study was done that examined violence and gender stereotyping in the study of 70 video games. The results revealed that of the 874 characters coded, 73% were male and 12% were female. When females did appear, they were likely to be seen in secondary roles. According to a historical review by Kirkpatrick, in the 1990s, gaming magazines looked like boys' comics. This reinforces the idea that gaming was a sexist media practice. The magazines would contain mainly male characters with little representation of female characters. This is significant as it would connote to women that gaming was an exclusive form of entertainment for males only. In the late 2000s, the industry began to design games that target women. Nevertheless, these games are still scarce and leave the players stuck with characters with perfect bodies rooted in sexism, racism, ageism, and classism. These game characters reproduce patriarchal and misogynistic values in which women are seen as invisible and inferior, thus promoting discriminatory behaviour. Female representation within video gaming is not getting better. There was a study done that found 80% of women in video games were represented in three ways: sexualized, scantily clad, and a vision of beauty. Similarly, in their study, Downs and Smith noted that female characters in video games tend to have unrealistic, Barbie like body proportions, with an exaggerated chest size, extremely long legs, and disproportionately small waist. At the same time, female characters have revealing clothes that emphasize body curves and, by design, will arouse the interest and physical intimacy of others. Downs and Smith also determined that female characters are very likely to be depicted partially or fully nude. Most of the time, female characters don't have appropriate clothes for completing the tasks at hand. Paradoxal female characters. Some video games have female protagonist characters, but they embody a paradoxical position, as they are simultaneously a source of female empowerment and objectified sex objects entirely for the male gaze. According to Grimes, female heroines adhere to the Western beauty standards, which is Caucasian, slim, beautiful, with symmetrical facial features. While some female characters might not necessarily have revealing costumes, female protagonists still have voluptuous and curvaceous bodies. Even though female protagonists come to occupy a traditionally masculine sphere when they use weapons and engage in violence and aggression, taking on masculine roles doesn't decrease the threat of the male gaze. An example of this would be Cammy from Street Fighter. Although her costume is high cut, showing a lot of skin and inherently sexualized, it is also used to show her muscles, an aspect that men wouldn't fetishize, rather admire. The character herself is a strong fighter and admired for her skills. A case study that we looked at is Lara Croft. In the Tomb Raider series, Lara Croft is a powerful female protagonist character. However, her body is still fetishized and shown as an object for the male gaze. In addition to exaggerated femininity and sexual attractiveness, in the newer version of the Tomb Raider, the character of Lara Croft is sexualized through the viewpoint of the game camera. The male gaze theory. Laura Mulvey first coined the term the male gaze theory in 1973. She suggests all forms of media are there to attract heterosexual males. All women in media are positioned to be sexual objects and to be observed for gratification purposes by males. Producers enable this through the use of dress codes and camera angles. What we include in camera frame is just as important as how we view female characters as the way they are written in the screenplay. Grand Theft Auto is a strong example of where we can apply Laura Mulvey's theory. Throughout each of the games, women have constantly been highly sexualized and objectified. Grand Theft Auto represents women in a highly sexual manner with the entire game. Although it's not much applicable to the main character you can play, it's more the side characters that you interact with throughout the game. Caroline Petit addressed the apparent misogyny of GTA 5 in her review of the game. She said that it had little room for women except to portray them as strippers, prostitutes, long suffering wives, humorous girlfriends, and goofy new age feminists were meant to laugh at. For example, the strippers in the funhouse, Tonya, a drug addict who offers you sexual favours to cover up for her boyfriend by towing cars, and the prostitutes on the street corners. Other examples include Franklin's aunt, who goes on power walks with other middle aged women who run and chant, "I'm a woman, hear me roar." The implication seems to be for the player to think, look how silly these women are when they think they're empowered. Another example is Michael's wife, an ex stripper who does nothing but scream at him every time she's on screen, and she cheats on him quite frequently. There's also his daughter, who's tramp stamped and permanently in revealing one pieces, and she's obsessed with nothing but making it big on a reality TV show. As time goes on, you continue to meet psychotic women like Mary Ann. This is an example of in-game play of GTA where we can show you inside the strip club and how women are represented completely different to men if you look at how they're dressed compared to the men and how the men act towards the women.
You look like you need a dance to unwind. Coming?
How about we take this party to the back? Is fucking garbage.
That's what I'm saying.
Jerk! Hey, baby, want a private dance?
So, how has representation of females changed over time? Female characters are being designed in more suitable and appropriate clothing. A notable increase of female protagonists as a whole, showing their independence and capability, and the use of character design. All these factors address the lack of female representation in the gaming industry in today's society. For example, Scythian from Sword and Sorcery is not defined by her gender or clothes, but is still noticeably a strong female character. Another example is Clementine from The Walking Dead, where Clementine becomes hardened and more mature in her outlook, but still bravely overcomes the dangers of the post-apocalyptic world. There is some progression in female representation in video games. This graph shows clear progression of female protagonist increases in the last 5 years. Statistically, 2020 represents a significant improvement with about 18% of games shown featuring a strong female character. In fact, this represents a new high, almost doubling the previous record of 9% from 2014, the first year of collecting data. In conclusion, a big advantage for progress made in the future is that women now make up for a bigger demographic than in the past. Therefore, this means it's easier for them to make a change to female representation by speaking out about their favourite game, about changes they want made. Although female representation has improved, many would argue that there is still a long way to go until male and female protagonists have an equal share in games. Hartop and Reed think that the situation with an unbalanced female hero comes from the fact that the vast majority of game developers are men, who either are too concentrated on their masculinity or consider including female characters is too difficult and time consuming. This is why it's been encouraged for more women to join within the industry, and you can tell there's a massive difference in the recent years. And these are all the references that we've used within this video if you want to take a look at them.